Welcome to Appanoose County, and in particular to Centerville, its county seat. My name is Enfys McMurry, and for the last 10.5 years, I've researched the history and the background of this area. And I find that the story of this town is so remarkable that it constitutes an almost perfect microcosm for the whole wonderful American story. It was geography that began its distinctive character. Appanoose County shares its 32-mile southern border with the state of Missouri. Missouri entered the Union in 1821 as a slave state. Iowa entered in 1846, outlawing slavery within its borders. A large group of this county's earliest settlers came with a purpose. They created an active underground railroad. It started half a mile north of the Missouri border, reached Centerville, curved north to Hyattsville, east to Unionville, east again to Drakesville in Davis County, then north, conducting escaping slaves to Eddyville en route to the ultimate safety of Canada. With the fall of Fort Sumter, on April the 12th, 1861, President Lincoln called for troops in order to preserve the Union. When that news reached this town of Centerville, this square teemed with volunteers. The men served in 8 of Iowa's infantry and 3 of the state's cavalry divisions. They fought at major battles in Missouri, Arkansas, and Mississippi, in Georgia, Tennessee, and North Carolina. Appanoose men fought at that Civil War iconic battle, the Hornet's Nest at Shiloh, and though outnumbered 4,500 to 18,000, gave General Ulysses Grant 5 critical hours to save his army from defeat. At exactly the same time, the people here at home had to defend themselves from attacks. There were assassination attempts against well-known abolitionists, and there were invasions from the South. Of the 1,500 men from Appanoose County who left to fight in the Civil War, 300 never returned. 300 died to preserve the Union. The very last one to die from Appanoose County was a 15-year-old boy. His father was Jonathan Stratton, who had platted this town originally in 1846. He hadn't wanted his 15-year-old boy to go, but the boy pleaded that he go to fight. He was the drummer boy in the 36th Infantry. Here's his name, the last one to die. The next most significant event in the county's history was the discovery of a rich coal field. This moved ships across the oceans, trains across the country. It fueled power stations, it warmed homes and businesses, but above all, it changed the population. Thousands of immigrants arrived here, stepping off trains of the county's 5 railroads after journeys from over 40 different countries of national origin. The immigrants came from England, Wales, Scotland, and Ireland, from Switzerland, France, Belgium, Holland, and Scandinavia, from Italy, Sicily, and Greece. They came from Croatia, from Turkey, Serbia, and Syria. They came from Poland, and they came from Russia. They came to work in the coal mines, creating a society so diverse in proportion to the county's total population. They made one of the most unique communities in the nation, and one representing in this limited area what was happening right across the nation. Businesses surged. New buildings filled the town. Mansions lined Drake Avenue. The Gold Coast, the immigrants called it. The diversity of Centerville was apparent right here on the square. On the southeast corner, there was a bocce ball court. On the northeast corner, a Chinese laundry. Between the two, German Martin Hatzenbieler opened a meat market, and next door to him, John Jensen opened a clothing store. On the south side of the square, Englishman Joe Goss made shoes. A few doors away, from Poland, Joe Frankel opened the town's first department store. And around the corner, a Russian, Joe Skolnick, became the town plumber. On the west side of the square, the Kata family from Syria imported and sold Oriental rugs. And on the northwest corner, the Rosenbaum family from Russia opened the People's Furniture Store. And right here, Santi Mullaney from Bogna di Luca in northern Italy had a cafe where he made homemade chocolates and homemade ice cream that people said was the very best quality that they could find. Wonderful, Jim, his grandson, Jim Mullaney. Wonderful.
So nice to see you. Yes.
Thank you, Doc.
Church services were conducted in native languages. A Catholic church and a Second Baptist for African Americans were built on South 18th Street. A synagogue on Terry at 15th. A Swedish Lutheran at East Sheridan. A Swedish Congregational on 16th at Walnut. Evening and weekend courses taught the English language. Immigrant children attended Iowa's integrated free public schools. American flags were presented to every classroom, so were copies of the United States Constitution. And one by one, the immigrants entered the courthouse at the center of Centerville Square. They emerged as Americans. They waved small flags. They were cheered by onlookers. And twice, these new citizens fought for their new country in foreign wars, some fighting in countries of their birth. After World War I, crime surged in Appanoose County. Again, this reflected what was happening across the country. Exacerbating it was the 18th Amendment, prohibition. To the county's immigrants, especially those from Southern and Eastern Europe, where a glass of wine was part of their culture, it's doubtful if any single law could have been more damaging. Hundreds of them became lawbreakers. Some went further. Their bootlegging activities absorbed them into a criminal class. Violence became common, and Centerville was a haunt of gangs from St. Louis, Kansas City, and Chicago. Police raided stills hidden in coal mines, in basements, in back rooms, and in the legs of tables. In 1921, the average number of arrests for such stills per Iowa County was 20 to 25. In Appanoose County, it was 63. The wine, grappa, made here was of such superior quality. A gallon fetched $40 in New York City, and this was the 1920s. Aircraft landed and departed in the dead of night. There were sightings of Al Capone, Pretty Boy Floyd, Babyface Nelson, Bonnie and Clyde, and Machine Gun Kelly. And Fred Burke, the main gunman for Al Capone in the Chicago St. Valentine's Day Massacre, took an assumed name and hid from the FBI on a farm 20 miles south of Centerville near Green City, Missouri. On June the 17th, 1930, Fred Burke entered the Appanoose County Courthouse in the center of Centerville Square, took out a marriage license under an assumed name of Richard F. White, and at the Lutheran minister's home on East Walsh Street, Fred Burke married Bonnie Porter, the daughter of a neighboring farmer near Green City.
There was another exacerbator of crime. The Ku Klux Klan arrived in this town in force in 1923. It dominated the town, and only one Protestant minister stood up to them, the Reverend Dr. Mott Sawyers, here at the Presbyterian Church.
Meetings were held after dark. Robed, hooded figures attended services and funerals. Fear permeated the town. People who opposed them were threatened. Neighbor turned against neighbor. The economy was in free fall. That was until March the 30th, 1925, and a new city government election. The people now understood the Klan's real agenda and turned out to vote. Lines quickly formed at 6 polling stations in the heaviest vote in Centerville's history. The Klan was defeated that night with majority at each precinct from 500 to 900 votes. Appanoose County has produced winning basketball, football, and track teams, choirs, orchestras, jazz bands, and debate teams. It has produced the 16th governor of Iowa, Francis Marion Drake, Oscar V. Payne, the inventor of the Tommy gun, aviator Al Ludwig, who managed Howard Hughes's record flight around the world, Theodore Perry Shantz, the second administrator of the Panama Canal and the head of New York City Transit. And Centerville has been the home of Strathbury, the world record holder pacer horse, and it's been home to a jockey, Mac Garner, who won the 1934 Kentucky Derby riding cavalcade. And it's also the home of international baritone singer Simon Estes. The children of these immigrants emerged from the county schools to become doctors, electricians, musicians, actors, carpenters, shopkeepers, lawyers, engineers, inventors, entrepreneurs, directors, educators, military personnel, and businessmen. They have spread across America, turning this country into the greatest economic force the world has ever known.
Centerville's story is not unique. It was happening in Peoria. It was happening in New York City. But what makes this town different is the size of the community. Well over 40 countries of national origin came here, and they fused. They became Americans, and they struggled, as we struggle today, to form a more perfect union. Welcome.